Good morning everybody and welcome to this EduSat session on the application-oriented course on writing for radio, the code for which is AWR. Let me begin by introducing myself. I am Neera Singh from the Faculty of English here at IGNOU, and I am the coordinator of this course on writing for radio. It is my privilege today to have here in the studios Professor Hema Raghavan, who is here in the capacity of expert to speak to you all about this course. Now, Professor Raghavan has been very closely associated with this course. In fact, she has been there since the very inception of this course, from the initial stages when it was launched. She was on the faculty of the English department here at IGNOU, and therefore, she was the coordinator of this course during the time it was launched. Subsequently, Professor Raghavan went on to become the principal of Gargi College, Delhi University, and also she was the Dean of Students' Welfare for the Delhi University. Not only that, Professor Raghavan was also the Pro-Vice Chancellor of the Rai University and Senior Vice President of the Amity University. Currently, Professor Raghavan is the Content Advisor for MGRM Net, a software company, and is involved with developing texts for e-learning. So keeping all these achievements in mind, I consider it a real privilege to have Dr. Raghavan here with us, and I extend a very warm welcome to her here. Thank you. Welcome, Dr. Raghavan. And I would really request all the students who are there listening to us to interact with us, to phone in with their questions if they have any, because I'm sure we will benefit a great deal from Professor Raghavan's expertise. Now, before I ask Dr. Raghavan to speak to us, I would just quickly like to go over, very briefly, over the course contents of writing for radio, so that all the students here who are here with us can get a brief recap of the whole course. Now, you all must be knowing that this is a 4-credit course. It is divided into 4 blocks and has 17 units. Now, the first block is entitled The Medium, and basically what we've spoken about in this block are the characteristic features of radio and some basic techniques of writing for radio. For example, we've talked about certain devices which we can use to compensate for radio's lack of visuals, like sound effects and music, how we can make a judicious use of all these things. Now, block 2 is called Reaching the Public, and basically what we've talked about in this block is the basic theory of mass communication and also how radio is an effective medium of mass communication. After that, we've gone on to speak about public service announcements. We've taught you all how to script for news. Then we've also talked about the production of documentaries and radio interviews and discussions. So that's block 2. Now in block 3, which is called the imagination, we have spoken about how effective radio is in the field of entertainment. We've taught you how to write imaginatively for radio with reference to radio plays, novels, short stories, and so on. And finally, we've spoken about commentaries for sports and other special events. Now, last but not the least, we come to block 4, which is the block that we are going to concentrate on today, and this is called Radio and Education. And for very long, radio has been considered to be a means of entertainment only. But in the last couple of decades, it has been accepted very widely as a means of imparting education, both at the university and the school level. And this is what we are going to be focusing on. Now, this very briefly was the course outline, and now I would request Professor Raghavan to share her views with us.
Thank you, Dr. Neera, for the kind introduction. Good morning, my dear friends. I have chosen radio and education. Why radio? See, when television came onto the scene, everybody said it is the end of radio. And audiovisual is very attractive, and radio was considered to be the poor cousin of television. But I think that has not been the truth. What we now today see is there are more and more of radio listeners. You can listen to the radio while going in the car or in the bus. You see a street vendor, a fruit vendor who has a whole lot of vegetables and fruits, but somewhere tucked in is a small little transistor and he listens to it. You find that radio is almost in the hands of almost everyone because it does not need or it does not depend on the power supply. You have the transistor and you can use it anywhere. So once you know that this is a very usable medium, it is a reachable medium, it can reach any part of India, whether it is a village or whether it is a town or a city, then why not use radio for this specific purpose of education? And therefore I have used this radio and education as my topic. Automatically our question will say, which all of you will also ask me, what exactly constitutes education? What is education? Now, whenever we talk about education, we as teachers tend to talk about education as educating the learner. We always associate education with the student, with the learner, because it is a process of training your mind, giving you knowledge, helping you to develop skills, and therefore it is something that focuses on the student or the learner. But it is also a process of teaching that involves the teacher. The teacher has to be very imaginative, the teacher has to be very creative, the teacher has to make it interesting, and therefore the interaction between the learner and the teacher, the student and the teacher, is something that we have to take cognizance of when we talk about education. I find that radio is an excellent medium. Now let us see. Let us compare radio with a classroom situation, with television, or the latest bus, internet with a CD-ROM. Now you find that in all these forms except the radio, the teacher is visually present. I have been a teacher standing in front of the classroom in front of my students and then giving the lecture. You can see, even if it is just as you are seeing me on the television, you can see me on the television while I am delivering this lecture. It's the same with a computer screen. So, the person is visually present, but when it is radio, no, the person is absent. So, generally people tend to think that if somebody is visually present, it gives a sense of intimacy, a feeling of assurance that, we can immediately participate. But I find that just like internet chatting or teleconferencing as what you have today, radio is also an enabling means of interaction. Live interactive question and answer sessions are possible, and I will welcome any kind of a question from the radio listener as much as the television viewer. But one moment, I was thinking this one very amazing thing. What is it that binds all this? Radio, television, internet, computer, classroom. What is the common link that is there? In all these modes, you listen to the teacher's voice.
Dr. Raghav, we agree that radio is indeed a very suitable medium for imparting education. But can you explain how it sort of scores over other modes or forms of mass communication as a medium of effective teaching?
Well, that's a very interesting question. Now, let me start it with two major points. One, you are all aware of this form called Katha. In all these small villages, there is this storytelling practice of our ancestors. Great epics like the Ramayana, the Mahabharata. In those days, there was no printing press. There was not even a pen or a pencil. Writing tools were not there. But today we still have the Ramayana and the Mahabharata because they have been handed down to us through the oral tradition. In other words, the narrator, the storyteller, the Katha, he narrates the story to a whole group of audience. Now, when you are reading a novel, you miss out on something, you go back to the previous page and see. When the narrator is narrating a story, what happens? He will continue with his story, and if you have missed out for some reason or other, he is not going to stop and say he will go back. So the concentration of the listener is very, very important, especially when you are listening to someone. The second thing that I want, keep that in mind. The second factor that I want to talk to you is that when you are actually listening, there are three ways. One, you are hearing the voice, unless you are hard of hearing, otherwise you listen to you hear the voice. Two, you listen to the voice. And three, you hear without listening. I am putting it three ways. All of us will hear the voice. You are hearing my voice. But at some point of time you can switch off. And you can go on hearing my voice without actually absorbing what I am saying. So you are not listening to me. So the listening is a very important point. And in a radio, what I would like to say is that unlike television, like what you are seeing me, you'll be probably watching me, the kind of gesture that I make, the kind of sari that I am wearing. You'll be probably concentrating on very many other things in addition to what you are hearing. So sometimes you may not be listening. It's the same with the classroom. The teacher sometimes, you look at the teacher and you look at the teacher's way of talking or way of presentation, and you lose out on the actual content. In the case of a radio like the Katha, you are able to concentrate, and one of the best things that radio education is that it enables you, it facilitates the concentration in you. So when you read a book or when you see a visual, your mind is distracted to some extent. The visual registers in your mind, but in the case of radio, you are focused on the lesson that is being taught. The other aspect, Neera, when you asked me, I'll explain to you. This is a very simple thing. It enables you to be very highly creative, very highly imaginative. Suppose I am going to watch a garden through a pane, through a glass pane in my window. When I look at the flowers, I don't see the glass pane. When I see the glass pane, I've missed out on the flowers. It's the same thing with the radio. In the radio, once you are going to listen to the lecture, you are not going to look at the visuals at all. You are not going to imagine other things. You are going to only creatively participate in what is being taught.
Professor Raghavan, could you illustrate how you would teach a student to say how to appreciate a poem? Would you like to give an example?
Poem is best taught by reading it aloud. Now, you get to understand, you get to know the meaning. I don't have to explain the meaning. The way that I read the poem, probably you will be able to gather the meaning or the substance of the poem. And radio is wonderful in this respect, because radio is not going to give you anything. It is going to just give you the poem and the way that I am going to read out the poem. Let me give you 6 short lines.
Could we have the slide, please?
You have line 1. A word is dead. Line 2, when it is said. Line 3, some say. Line 4, I say it just. Line 5, begins to live. Line 6, that day. Now, when the poem is read aloud, it goes like this. A word is dead when it is said. Some say. I say, it just begins to live that day. I am trying to say that when it is, some people say when it is said, it is dead, whereas I say it just begins to live that day. What have I done? I have joined lines 1 and 2. I have joined lines 5 and 6. And between these two, line 1 and 2 and line 5 and 6, I have just initiated a small pause. Some say, I say. And this is the best way that you can probably read a poem aloud and make the listener understand the meaning of the poem.
Not only that, Professor Raghavan, would you say that, learning the correct usage of language is also one of the advantages that radio can provide? Apart from appreciating the poem.
Yes, that's again a wonderful question that you've asked. This is because in radio we use a repetition. Now, I'll just give an example. We in India, we have this tendency to use participles whenever we talk. Suppose I am going to talk to Neera. I'll be meeting you tomorrow at the station. The correct usage of it is, I will meet you tomorrow at the station. I will be eating my lunch on my way to the station. Neera, I will eat my lunch on my way to the station. Now, when I am talking to you, I repeat this. I will meet you tomorrow. I will eat lunch. He will play tomorrow. I am not going to say he will be playing tomorrow in Jamshedpur, but he will play the match tomorrow at Jamshedpur. So, the moment you go on and on and on, you repeat the correct usage, then that usage gets embedded in the memory. You don't have to bother about it because automatically you will come to know that this is the correct usage. Nobody has to teach you, you pick it up on your own. In other words, radio is a very effective medium of improving your verbal memory.
Could you also throw some light on how a teacher can make a lesson more interesting?
Well, that is, what I said, the education is part teacher, part learner. And the teacher has to be, really very, very careful that the student does not go off to sleep or doesn't get bored or doesn't switch off the mind. The teacher has to make it very, very interesting, and you have to have a fund of creativity. You have to be very imaginative, very creative to give interesting examples. At the same time, if I start without any voice modulation and I keep very sing-song monotonous tone, I will put you all to sleep. So there is one thing that is there, it calls for voice modulation, it calls for creativity, it calls for inventiveness. For example, if you take small children, especially in the age group of 4 to 6, what do they love best? They love stories, they already hear from their nana, nani, dada, dadi. And then, not only that, they also want to have the sound patterns. You just say, there was a train, but if you say chuk, 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 the train is going, it becomes much more interesting for them. So, radio facilitates duplicating the sound. But when you come to the older age group, they are much more inquisitive. They don't want you to tell them what is the moral of the story. They don't want any explanation. They want to enjoy listening to the story and they want to get the thrill of getting the meaning of the story. It is a kind of a thing where you say that you don't have to teach values. The values are something that the learner, the student, imbibes.
Could you give us an example about this, Dr. Raghavan? How can young people understand values without a teacher, overtly, without a teacher giving a literal explanation? Could you give us an illustration?
Yeah, this is something that I would say that I narrated this folk tale. I took it from A.K. Ramanujam, the great poet, come storyteller. And I narrated this on the radio. And it was an interactive session. And it was a very simple story. I just want to give you the story. It's just a few lines. There was an old lady and she's outside on the street. It is late in the evening, semi-dark. And she is looking for something. And there was a young man who passes by and says, Grandma, what are you looking for? And the grandma says, my son, I have lost my keys. Oh, did you lose the keys here? Out in the street? No. I lost them at home. Then why are you here out in the street? Oh no, inside my hut it is dark. The story ends on that note. Believe it or not, I had a whole lot of young children responding to this story, and all of them came out with this more or less the same conclusion. Look, we understood it. There is no point, because if it is totally worthless seeking values outside your tradition, the values are here at home in the tradition, and you don't have to look out for outside to give you these values. I was really surprised that a small story like this short story, was able to enthuse the young people and make them get the thrill of finding the meaning.
That was very interesting, Dr. Raghavan. In your opinion, should radio lessons necessarily be supplementary to the printed text, or should they be complementary? What do you think about that?
It should be both. It should be supplementary as well as it should be complementary. When you say it is a supplementary, that is, you are supplementing whatever has been given in your textbook. So that is supplementary, is that you enrich whatever has been printed in the textbook or whatever your teacher has taught in the classroom. You are enriching it, enriching the learning of the text. But when the subjects that are allied to the text are explained on the radio, it becomes complementary. I will give you the example. Like, for example, a novel. You can read the novel. The teacher can, speak about characterization, this and that. But the teacher will not have the time to go through everything. Suppose on the radio somebody speaks about what is a novel, what kind of novels were written in different periods, what is the difference between a novel and a play. Both of them deal with a story. Where is the difference that lies between a novel and a play? What is a particular character doing? What kind of a conclusion? Now the lecture gives the student a wider perspective of the genre called novel. It is not rooted to one single text, but it goes beyond the pale of the text and gives you a wider perspective. And that is where the radio broadcasts are welcome, because it is both supplementary and complementary.
Professor Raghavan, would you say that all subjects are suitable to be taught over radio, or are there certain subjects which can be better taught and certain subjects which do not lend themselves to, be taught over the radio?
Well, yes, there are certain subjects which you really cannot use radio as a medium of instruction. Now, literature, music, poetry, drama, history, geography to some extent, languages, they are best taught by the radio medium. But if I have to teach you painting, or sculpture, or dance, or sciences which need laboratories for practicals, geographical maps, surveys, then it's not possible. These subjects cannot be very effectively taught. You can probably give a bit of a theory, but it won't be very effective teaching on the radio.
So basically all these visual arts do not lend themselves easily to adaptation.
Yes, visual arts do not lend themselves. And then, when I say radio is something where even the blind can listen to the radio,
yes,
then obviously, they cannot really have the advantage of this thing. I can probably speak to them about the history of painting, but I can't really explain to them or illustrate to them.
That's right. What are some of the other advantages of radio education? Would you elaborate on that, please?
Well, apart from whatever I had said till now, in terms of the verbal memory or higher degree of concentration, language, ability to use the language, one very major thing, when a book is published, it takes time for a publication of supplementary material to that book. Knowledge never remains static. It's all the time. Every day there are new things are discovered, new inventions, new theories, new disciplines. You find that. And for a text book publisher to publish these new things, it will take at least 6 months, if not more than that. Radio, and for that matter, any electronic media, is very, very quick in that matter, because it can have this distinctive advantage of keeping pace with new developments. So they can relay the information in a jiffy. They can relay information very fast. The second is, which I had just now said, radio is also called the theater for the blind. The visually impaired students, this is one thing that you might have noticed, they have a very, very remarkable power of concentration. And the radio broadcasts are of immense use to them. And we also find that radio is it's a very, very good medium for both non-formal education and for distance education.
Could you tell us the difference between non-formal education and distance education?
Right. Non-formal education, by and large, I should say that. I think I shouldn't say by and large. More, it does. It caters to school education. Whereas distance education, is something that relates to higher education. It relates to the graduate, post-graduation level. In other words, it is post-secondary education. Now, when I say school education, and I keep very clear in my mind that non-formal education are meant for those children who are of the smaller age group, who are illiterate or semi-literate. Whereas in the case of adults, we find that they have already finished their high school. Some people have even finished their graduation. Many people are working like you. You are more mature, more motivated, and you want this education to add on to your existing qualification. The third difference is non-formal education. Now, in the case of distance education, now you are watching me on the television, teleconferencing is there, you have the study centers with the video program. It by and large depends a great deal on electronic media, and especially the audiovisual media for instruction. In the case of non-formal education, radio is of course an added bonus. Most students, as I said, come from underprivileged groups, and radio, as I said, has a wide reach. It can reach to the corners, it can go to the villages, it can go to the districts, towns and cities, and therefore it is a preferred medium of instruction because of its easy accessibility and usability. And another point is, as I said, distance education provides graduation education. To get you a BA degree or a master's degree or a postgraduate diploma, and it keeps the standards very high, in keeping with the higher standards in higher education in the universities. Non-formal education basically aims at spreading literacy, fostering social and community living. It educates the young students about environment, environmental awareness, health matters, hygiene, and sometimes, simple technical skills. So there's a difference between the kind of non-formal education that you give and the distance education. And the last but not the least is non-formal education is complementary to the existing form of formal system of education.
So there is a difference between both these, but is there a difference in scripting between these two also? Scripting for non-formal education and scripting for distance learning. Is there a difference?
No. Yes, there is a difference, will be in a very different sense. That is, in the case of distance education, the subjects that you are dealing may be of a higher order. The language that you are going to speak may have technical terms which the student can follow. You can say, a science teacher can say something about catalyst, right? Whereas in the non-formal education stream, you cannot use very big words, you cannot use bombastic words. But by and large, when you write a script, whether it is for the radio script, whether it is for non-formal education or for distance education, we have the simple yardstick. Keep the language direct. The way that you talk, direct language, familiar language, and a simple language. I do not know whether I can illustrate you in a very, very simple way. You all know Christmas. And what is very special about Christmas? Whether we celebrate Christmas, going to the church or not, we certainly look forward to the Christmas cake. And this plum cake, which is a very special cake. It is made with, gin and wine, and it's a very specially made cake. It's not something that is made every day. It is made only on Christmas Day. But on Christmas Day, when you sit at the table, you know what you are going to get. You know that it is going to be the Christmas plum cake. In other words, the Christmas cake is something which is special, but at the same time, it's not something that you have never seen. It is something that you are familiar with. It's not something that is strange. Similarly, when you are talking about the radio script, it has to be simple. It has to be familiar. And it has to be special. When I say it has to be special, I mean that you cannot use slang language. You cannot use improper language. You have to use a correct language. You have to use a familiar language, that which is good, clear, and easy. And it also makes me think about the mental level. When I am talking to my students, what is it that I have to be aware of? That I have to see what is the mental level of the students. It's one thing to talk to the students who are in school, especially in the non-formal system, and you are talking with students like you who are in the higher grade, are looking at the graduate education. So the mental level of the audience has to be taken care of when you are scripting. You also have to have a logical development. You cannot be jumping from one point to another. There has to be a kind of a very logical, precise kind of movement. Otherwise, you will be wondering, what is the teacher talking? Why is it that he is jumping from one point to the other? The most important thing is the attention span. And I think as a classroom teacher, I know it much better than anyone. You can see children yawning after some time. Children switch off, or they're bored, or looking at their watch when it is going to come to an end. You should be very mindful about the attention span, and when you find that the lecture is somewhere petering out to some kind of a dullness, immediately creatively bring a story, bring an incident, bring something that will pep them up and then make them once again get interested in the topic that you are discussing. Right. Repetition. It is. Radio scripts are very, very, focused on repetition. You repeat any number of times, but that is the one way that it gets into the memory of the listener.
Could I add a bit to that, Professor Raghavan, with your permission?
Yes.
As far as radio language is concerned, and this is not only for radio and education, when we are scripting for education, but I suppose for all programs over the radio which we are going to be writing scripts for, radio language must be such that it should not deride any race, caste, color, creed, nationality, unless what you are saying has been strictly written for combating any kind of prejudice, any kind of bias. Am I correct?
Absolutely right. The only thing is, the only additional point that I make is that any teacher worth his or her name,
yes.
Whether you are teaching inside the classroom or whether you are on the television or on the radio, I think you have to, what you said is absolutely right. I think we steer clear of all these kind of divisions,
yes.
because we have to see that there should be a homogeneous society.
Absolutely.
And wherever it is required that you are going to hammer in the fact that these things, this division should not be there, probably you speak about it. Otherwise, I think one steers clear of gender, race, and other kind of a division, caste division.
Anything
in
which
your language.
incites people to crime or violence.
I cannot agree more with you
promotes
than
criminality
this.
as desirable.
Absolutely.
Or anything of this sort.
Yeah.
Dr. Raghavan, would you say that music also has a role to play in educational programs? Because, in other programs like writing for, adapting plays for radio broadcast, or, adapting a short story, as a drama, that kind of thing, in that kind of a thing, music is very beneficial. But for radio educational programs.
See, the point is what you say, even in radio drama or radio play, we can make it musical, because it will become very interesting if it is made musical. But music, it's a point that you say that you use music for drama or play. Whether you can teach music on the radio is a question that you are asking. I tend to agree with this, that music can be best taught on the radio. In South, I think it continues today, in the evening, twice a week or so, on the radio for about half an hour, there are music lessons. The very fundamental sari gama is being taught, and then some small little songs are taught. And I think, this, as I said, the whole thing is a continuous process of repetition, and the music lends itself to this kind of a teaching over the radio.
Okay. Now I'd just like to tell our students something about, to come down to the more practical aspect, something about the assignments and the term end examination that they would have to take. Since this is an application-oriented course, our basic aim through this course is to initiate you all into writing scripts for radio, be they educational or for entertainment. So that is the basic aim of this course. And therefore, we give a 60% weightage to the application-oriented side of this course, and we give a 40% weightage to the comprehension of this course material. So you'll notice that when you get your assignments along with your course material, the questions in the assignments would also have a 60% component of the creative type of assignment questions, and 40% of these would be comprehension based. And similarly, in the term end examination, there would be 60% questions relating to the application-oriented side. For example, we could give you a poem, a short poem, or we could give you an excerpt from a short story and ask you to write a script and adapt it for radio presentation. So you must be prepared for these kind of questions also. 60% of the component would be creative and 40% comprehension based. So this is one of those practical things that you must know when you are doing this course.
Can I add a little bit to that?
Yes, yes.
You have been listening to this discussion on radio and education for the last 45 minutes. Suppose you get back home and try to write a radio script. How are you going to write a radio script on radio and education? Maybe a very good way of a practical way of understanding this is application oriented, and probably I will feel that whatever I have said would have benefited you.
Yes, Dr. Rahman, it just brings to mind, you were talking about radio language just now. So, there's a very interesting example of, the kind of pedantic language that sometimes we get into the habit of using. I came across a sentence which read, scintillate, scintillate, diminutive asteroid. I mean, it really sounds very high flown and very, very pedantic, but when it's translated into simple English, it simply means twinkle, twinkle, little star. So what I'm trying to get at is that, we must write short and simple sentences so that the listening audience can follow us easily, and not make our script high sounding and, have a lot of big words which would be just double Dutch to the listeners. Am I right in that?
Absolutely right. I think putting it in a much simpler way. It's a wonderful example of a twinkle twinkle little star. But I would say that a radio script is not a PhD thesis. You are not expected to write any such kind of a script. Correct. It has to be something that everyone who listens to you should benefit by that.
Understand.
So that's a kind of a thing that you have to probably get.
Yes. So, is there anything else that you'd like to
No,
tell
it is
students?
just that, if you are going to prepare a radio talk, I just want you to keep in mind, please make sure that you understand the topic very well. Do all your research in advance and make a thorough understanding of the topic. Then the second thing is, when you are actually doing it, you will also understand that there are areas which are difficult areas. A good teacher is one who has got an intuitive perception of what are the areas a student will find it difficult, and then how to make that area simple for the student. So when you're writing the script, you keep that in mind, that these are the problem areas, these are the difficult areas, and I have to make them much more comprehensive. And the last but not the least is develop this talent. I am using the word very carefully, talent, not ability but talent, to make complex things simple. That's a very major thing in a radio script. So once you have a good, easy, clear language, you have a thorough command of the topic that you are going to talk about, you have the intuitive perception of the difficulties that a student may encounter, and if you make complex matters appear simple, I think your radio script will be the best that you can ever think of.
I'd just like to sum up what we've gone over in this lecture. We all agree that radio is a very effective means of imparting education. We've spoken about certain fields in which radio is very useful as a means of imparting education, and certain fields in which it is slightly more difficult to sort of present your the subject matter. It is indispensable to the blind and to the partially sighted. It is very, very useful for children, for school broadcasts, as well as for higher education. Radio is very useful for distance learning. It is very useful for non-formal education. We've also spoken about the use of language, in which we've said that we should eliminate all unnecessary details like statistics, etc., because nobody will actually remember them over the radio. We should keep our language simple. We should keep our sentences short. We should use simple words. And basically we should avoid generalizations unless we have solid evidence to back them up with. And also we've spoken about how language should not incite people to crime or violence. It should not really go against any religious policy or any political party. And in short, it should be language should be that which should not really mislead the listeners. So keeping all these basic rules in mind, I think we can very easily script for education to be taught over radio. Is there anything else that I may have missed, Professor Raghavan?
No, I think you have summed it up. You have summed up everything, and I think that calls for a very, 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 very good command of language, because it's not easy to write simple language. It is easy to write a complex language.
That's right. That's right. So keeping all this in mind, I think radio does score over the other mediums because of its easy accessibility, I would say. And also there's one advantage that, it can be taped. The programs over radio can be taped and can be listened to at leisure.
That's right. Yeah, that is there. It's preserved for posterity.
That's right.
That's right.
So thank you so much, Professor Raghavan. It was a real pleasure having you here, and I'm sure we've really, really learned a lot from your talk today, and we look forward to more sessions in the future with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Neera.